He is crushing every opponent across almost all demographics. The question is, will former President Trump show up for the first Republican debate, or will he take a pass and skip it?
Well, with 2 weeks to go, the GOP field of qualified candidates is taking shape. Former Vice President Mike Pence is the latest to make the stage. Chief political analyst David Brody brings us the latest.
Come August 23rd, all eyes will be on Milwaukee, the scene of the GOP's first debate. So far, 8 candidates have qualified. Former President Trump, Ron DeSantis, Tim Scott, Nikki Haley, Vivek Ramaswamy, Christie, Doug Bergum, and most recently, former Vice President Mike Pence. The Republican National Committee required candidates to score at least 1% in 3 high-quality national polls, or a mix of national and early state polls, plus gather a minimum of 40,000 donors in 20 or more states. A big question remains, though, whether the clear frontrunner will even show up. The latest New York Times Siena poll shows Donald Trump crushing each opponent across almost every demographic group. One of his challengers, Nikki Haley, told CBN News she understands why he may not show up.
Donald Trump is thinking he just may skip the first debate, maybe both debates, the one in California as well. What do you make of that type of talk?
It's his decision to make. I think that, at the end of the day, he probably sees that it would do him more harm to get on a debate stage than not.
Give folks like you and others oxygen?
Well, I think that, at the numbers he has now, why would he go get on a debate stage and risk that? But, he'll have to make that decision when he wants to. And at the end of the day, I think the American people will want to see him on that stage. I think they'll want to see all the candidates on the stage.
So while Trump keeps the field and voters guessing, here's what's happening with the rest.
Yeah, it's happening to you too.
A Trump vacancy could be a needed opportunity for Ron DeSantis, currently polling second. While he's struggling to gain traction, the candidate polling the highest will be placed center stage, and that means DeSantis would have prime placement if Trump skips. Then there are the rest hoping for a breakthrough moment. Tim Scott, Nikki Haley, Doug Bergum, and Vivek Ramaswamy, who has seen his poll numbers rise recently, possibly due to his vocal defense of Trump during his legal troubles.
On January 20th, 2025, if I'm elected the next U.S. president, to pardon Donald J. Trump for these offenses in this federal case.
As for the wild card, look no further than Christie, otherwise known as the Trump wrecking ball. While he would likely remain the main attack dog against the former president, the question is whether it will stick against Trump's Teflon nature. That brings us to Mike Pence, who's been separating himself from his former boss after the latest indictment on charges of trying to overturn the 2020 election.
I really do believe that anyone who puts themselves over the Constitution should never be president of the United States. And anyone who asks someone else to put themselves over the Constitution should never be president of the United States again.
Clearly, all eyes will be on Donald Trump as the debate draws closer, and he knows it. Just recently, he posted on Truth Social saying it's a good idea if all the other candidates get on the debate stage so he can choose his next vice president. Andrew?
All right, David, a fascinating time of year. What do you make of the relationship between Trump and Mike Pence and the distance now between them? Is that a good move for Pence?
Well, it's definitely a Dr. Phil relationship for sure. It's really sad to see. We've talked about this before, how they're actually good friends. Here's what's going on, Andrew, if I can just cut right to the chase. Mike Pence will tell you publicly that he believes that he can be the next president of the United States, that he thinks he can win the Republican nomination. He'll say that publicly. But I think privately it's a different matter. I think for what Mike Pence is, what's happening here, we've seen Mike Pence, in essence, go much stronger against Donald Trump, come out and really be bolder than we've ever seen him before. This is a different version of Mike Pence, and that's because I believe he truly is kind of on this tour of reconciliation with himself. He believes that, in essence, and this is the way I kind of dissect it psychologically, that he has to kind of right a wrong. He thinks that what happened on January 6th was so bad to the point where he needs to make sure that he goes and sees his future make sure he can live with himself at the end of the day. And that's why I think he's running. I think he's running to kind of right that wrong and make sure that he can speak out. And so he can say at the end of the day, well done, good and faithful servant.
All right, David, let's talk about Ron DeSantis. I think it would have been wise for him to pass on this campaign and come back in a few years, but he decided to run. And now I don't know if you saw that his campaign would be in this much trouble. Are you surprised where he is at? And he even fired his campaign manager recently, right?
Yeah, he just fired his campaign manager. This is like the third reboot, and we're not even at the first debate. You know, if you're at reboot 1, that's bad. Reboot 2 is really bad. Reboot 3 is like Oi Gavolt level. And you wonder what in the world is going on here. Well, look, I mean, not to be nasty or anything, but Ron DeSantis may need to kind of reboot actually himself as a candidate in this cycle at this time. He may be a good future president, but I think he misjudged the calculus of where the Republican Party is right now. And it's still with Trump. He thought they were going to possibly shift away from him after indictment 1, indictment 2, indictment 3, and coming soon, probably indictment 4. It has not happened. And Andrew, let me be very clear. It will not happen. And so Ron DeSantis has picked the wrong time to run. That doesn't mean he's not a future president of the United States, but right now, as we know, timing is everything.
Yeah, the debate is now 2 weeks away, and I think, you know, it benefits Trump not to be there, and Christie may benefit from that because he can be kind of the bulldog. What are you looking for in that debate?
Well, first of all, you know, it's interesting you say it helps him politically. I mean, I would agree that Trump doesn't need to show up at the debate based on the numbers. I personally think he should go. And when I say personally, let me provide the analysis behind that. I mean, you know, he always rails up against the elitist. You know, he talks about how they're out to get the little guy. Well, if Donald Trump decides not to show up for the debate and show up on the debate stage, then is he becoming one of the elitists? Is he saying, hey, look, I'm running for president, but I'm not going to show up because I'm above all these other candidates and I don't need to? I mean, so I think there's some danger there. Plus, I think everybody on stage will be hitting Trump pretty hard and he won't be there to defend himself. But in terms of what I'm looking at, a couple things. One, Vivek Ramaswamy, he is increasing in the polls. I think he's going to be a name to be heard by a lot more folks after the debate. I think he's someone to watch. And also Nikki Haley and others, Tim Scott, how much will they go after Ron DeSantis, who will be in the middle of the stage? Because remember, before you can take out number 1, you got to get to the second slot. And that's why DeSantis and Haley, Haley and Scott will be looking at DeSantis, have him in their crosshairs.
All right, David, always appreciate your analysis. Thanks for being with us.
You bet.